You're listening to Wisdom of the Ages, the show that taps into the many expressions of universal, ancestral, and personal wisdom to ignite evolutionary consciousness.
Welcome and blessings. This is Anne Kate Sullivan, host of Wisdom of the Ages podcast, where we invite the sacred into modern day reality. So each week I interview healers, spiritual teachers, and mystics, and I now offer monologues on spiritual awakening. And you can listen to many more spiritual episodes on superpowerexperts.com/wisdom of the ages. And you can also find many more spiritual books on my publishing website, infinitelifepublishing.com. So today's topic, it's one of my favorite topics. It's shamanism. As my guest on this episode, Sandra Ingerman, says, the word shaman comes from the Tungus tribe in Siberia, and it means spiritual healer or one who sees in the dark. Shamanism has been practiced in Siberia, Asia, Europe, Africa, Australia, Greenland, and native North and South America. So shamanism is the most ancient spiritual practice known to humankind. I mean, that's why we really want to tap into these roots today. So many anthropologists believe that the practice dates back over 100,000 years, long time. So I've been interested in shamanism ever since I read a book by Lynn Andrews in the 1980s, and I've also trained in Celtic shamanism with Caitlin Matthews and others in Britain. In fact, I recorded an interview with Caitlin on her Holy Grail and Fairy Grail, which you can go back and listen to. It's a topic that I love and find endlessly interesting. So I continue to be part of an international Celtic group of people who practice together for the good of humanity and the planet. So it's clear to me that shamans walk on the edge of society, and during times of shift and change, they're holding light. They can help us retain hope. Shamanism is needed today to help people connect back to nature, to their soul, and to the truth of who they are. So this leads me to my guest today, Sandra Ingerman. I'll do a little bio for her because she's really quite an interesting woman. I want you to know about her. So Sandra Ingerman is an award-winning author of 12 books, including the Book of Ceremony, which I'm currently reading. It's beautiful. I'm listening to her audiobook also, Speaking with Nature, Awakening to the Deep Wisdom of the Earth. And that has really touched my heart. So I encourage you to find that. She's a presenter of 8 audio programs produced by Sounds True. Sandra is a world-renowned teacher of shamanism and has been teaching for close to 40 years. She lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So Sandra Ingerman is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a professional mental health counselor, and also a board-certified expert on traumatic stress. She's not a lightweight. I'm really impressed here. She's a woman who's really walking her talk, so I love this. Watkins Body, Mind, Spirit magazine honored Sandra by including her in their 100 most spiritually influential people of 2020. That's sort of a big deal. She also has a show called Shaman TV that I enjoyed watching and listening to. So thank goodness there are women holding us as we birth into this next era. So I'm very pleased to have her with us today. If you stay towards the end, she's going to do some drumming and actually take us into a shamanic state. I'm really looking forward to it. So when we come back from this short break, I will introduce Sandra Ingerman, and we will continue to discuss shamanism and how this ancient path can help us now. Please check out her website, sandraingerman.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Rekla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter. We now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz. And as Neva Lee Rekla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Ann Kate Sullivan, host of Wisdom of the Ages. So Sandra Ingerman, welcome to Wisdom of the Ages.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy to be talking to a practitioner from another tradition. And I think the Celtic work blends so amazingly into all forms of shamanism because both practices are completely nature-based. And so that's something that we have in common, and that's what's drawing people to the work today. People are starving to connect with nature right now.
It's so important. It's so important. Years ago, I went with a friend to the Chalice Well in Glastonbury, and I had this quite strong spiritual experience at the well. And I actually felt, and I'm sure you've felt it many times, but I felt this presence, this divine presence, feminine presence. And it just really took me. And so I've been going back, I think 35 years. I go every year and do some, well, not this year, but generally go. And we do a quest somewhere into Wales or Scotland or Cornwall, and crawl into some of the sacred cairns and dream with the earth and dream with her. So tell me about your tradition. Like how did you get into it? What happened?
Well, I think I was always destined to be part of the shamanic path in the Western world. In shamanism, it's understood that oftentimes a person will get an obvious sign, an initiation, that lets them know that they have been picked by the spirits. And I'm not saying this in a non-humble way, because actually being picked of the spirits to do shamanic work isn't always the best choice that one would make. It's an incredibly hard life. And so at the age of 7, I was hit by lightning, which is in most shamanic cultures a sign of a shaman. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, with a very conservative family who lived through the Depression and was literally just trying to put food on the table. So I didn't have, I was well taken care of by my parents, but we didn't have philosophical and spiritual conversations growing up. So I was kind of on my own. And then I grew up in the 60s. So, I started smoking marijuana when I was 13 and doing LSD and having unbelievable experiences. And through that, I had more near-death experiences. And when I was 19, I actually drowned in the ocean of Mazatlan and had CPR to bring me back. Those are just 2 of my near-death experiences. I have more. And we over-romanticize near-death experiences. It was really the earth trying to get me to wake up and own my decision to be here fully. And so I had all this spiritual knowledge. I was getting all these downloads, and I was reading spiritual books, Ram Dass back in that time. But I had no foundation. I had no practice. I didn't know what to do with all these insights, all these downloads. And so in 1980, destiny definitely came into my life. It was definitely destiny that because I was overwhelmed at school with taking too many courses and working 60 hours a week, I signed up for a weekend course where I was supposed to get 2 easy units. And it turned out to be a workshop on shamanic journeying. And that was on Halloween of 1980. And
Wow.
I'm still doing the work. It's been close to 40 years. And I've been teaching all over the world and seeing clients for close to 40 years. It's a hard path, but it's been my joy to be on this path.
It's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So, we're in such wild times right now on the earth. How can we use shamanic tools, or how can we start to live into this next paradigm? Maybe how do we defend against some of the wild negativity or division, the difficult things that are going on right now? I mean, I guess we defend against it. I think I heard you talking about transmuting the anger into love. Like, how do we do that?
Yeah, well, there's what we really need right now is tools. And the beautiful thing about shamanism is because it is so ancient, like many spiritual traditions, like the Celtic ways, is we have all these ancestors who actually left us breadcrumbs. They didn't desert us. They told us about the times that are coming and how to get through them. So they actually offer tools to us, and it's just really interesting how our little egos get so entranced by the drama of what's going on in the world that we're forgetting that cultures have gone through this since the beginning of history. We're just in a different phase. But so all these cultures left us tools and left us ways to work. The biggest tool that's been left to us, which I already mentioned, is spending more time in nature. Because when you spend more time in nature, number one, you're not only reaching out to nature for healing, which nature is healing balm for all of us, but you start to see that nature is actually trying to touch you. It's trying to feel your skin. It's trying to hear your stories, and it wants you to hear your stories about its life. So when you sit down by a tree and you say to a tree, may I step into your field of energy, to get permission first, instead of running to a tree and grabbing it and putting your arms around it and saying, heal me. Think of the difference energy of when you say, may I step into your field of energy, and you get permission. And you sit down and you talk about your life, and you ask the tree about its family and its life. You start to create these precious relationships. I've been teaching so many courses on doing this work, and it's amazing how people are just separating from the drama of the collective. They stepped into another dimension. They actually, and I watched them do it, and I hitchhiked with them into another dimension where they're only living in beauty right now with nature. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know that we have some staunch activists listening, but there's so many ways. We all have to do what works for us and what works for our health. And so the activist way definitely makes changes, but the spiritual way of working in the unseen realms, weaving completely new dreams, a fabric of reality. If you only do activist work and there's no dreaming work, where's the new dream? Where's the new dream that we're going to have? So spiritual practices are really, really important right now. And transmutation is a practice that I really teach for people. Because in shamanism, if it's okay to give a little history of why it's so important. In shamanism, it's understood that thoughts are things. And this is what, in the time of the COVID, we're having to look at very intently right now of how we put out so many negative thoughts into the collective that created a spiritual intrusion like this. So in the practice of shamanism, it's taught that thoughts are things. And so our words that we say, it's believed that our words go up to the creative forces of the universe and manifest down as form, because words are just vibration, and vibration manifests into form. Our thoughts, think about a train of thoughts. Where are your train of thoughts leading you to? And then in shamanic cultures, they talk about daydreams, that this world is just a dream, and we're dreaming this entire world into reality through our daydreams. So why don't we start focusing on what we want instead of the nightmares we keep going over in our mind? And that's what's manifesting. That's what we're all coming together to manifest, is those looping nightmares going on in our mind. Now, these particular principles were taught to children in shamanic cultures as soon as they could talk, so that they learned right relationship in the world, how to communicate, how to think, and how to daydream. But everybody's human, including everybody brought up in a shamanic culture. And our ego resists unity, love, thinking about great daydreams and watching our thoughts. The ego wants to separate, it wants to divide, it wants to fight. And so that's understood in all spiritual cultures, because we came into this world as spirits to experience an entire breadth of life, which is extreme joy to extreme rage. Spirits don't get to experience that. So we came in as these little spirits to experience a sensory world of smelling roses and seeing beautiful skies and trees and rainbows and tasting chocolate. But we also have these egos that are mad. And from a shamanic point of view, that is your right. You came here to express fully, but there's a difference between expressing and sending that energy out into the world. And so in shamanism, it's taught that we send the negativity out, and it can either just go into the collective, creating a pandemic, which we're seeing now. Think of how many negative thoughts there were before this pandemic, with all the fires in Australia, the Amazon political unrest, immigrants, abuses. Everybody was mad and sending it into the collective. And from a shamanic point of view, that's where viruses, flus, pandemics come from. So the solution is, what shamans talk about is express, but don't send. And so what that means is, I am mad right now. I am really mad right now. But I ask that that energy be transformed to love and light. And that's what goes out into the collective, because also what's understood in shamanism, we do embrace the principle of unity and oneness. And what that means is, when you send, for example, when you send hate to a spiritual leader, that hate bounces back to you, you absorb it. All your loved ones, your children, your grandchildren, your favorite nature beings, your favorite animals, they all receive that same hate. So look at all the illnesses on the planet right now. We're all receiving the energy of hate that's being put out by so many beautiful spiritual practitioners and people who, of course, are still sleeping and not awake at all, because we have to understand that shamans are gardeners of energy. And so when you put out hateful energies, it boomerangs back to every life form on the planet. So what I teach people how to do as a way to work with this is, again, acknowledge your feeling, because if you don't, you send a spiritual intrusion to yourself, which creates illness. So acknowledge how you're feeling and then ask. It sounds like a lot of words, but it's not. Ask that the energy be transmuted to light that feeds you, your loved ones, and the collective. What I like to do when I'm really triggered, I love elephants and I love kittens. So whoever want to direct hate at, I actually picture their face as an elephant or a kitten. And I can't send that energy to an elephant or a kitten. I can't.
That's a great idea. Actually, it's like sometimes I see them as a little kid or a baby. It's like you just wouldn't do that.
No,
it's true. There's that 1 minute, that it's not even a minute. It's like a millisecond when you can feel that whoosh of, and it's like, I've been really struggling with this recently, just because there's so much division, and you're just talking away to someone, and then suddenly this energy happens, and you're like, wait a second, I just fell into dualism. I just fell into dualistic thinking. Like, how in that moment, before the argument actually happens, maybe that's it. Let's do the shape-shifting thing right now and just see this person as a young being. But do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah. Well, actually, I wrote a whole list in a book I wrote, Walking in Light. And actually, on my website, I have an article for free called How to Heal Toxic Thoughts. And it has a few different things. So, for example, I love the smell of roses, so I carry rose essence with me, and I'll just pick it up and smell it, and that will take some of the trigger away. I'll take a sip of water, and do I want to send that kind of hate to water? No. So everything is about, basically, with the practice of transmutation, we're trying to get that we're triggered, and we want to get that we're triggered and stop before we shoot the gun. Because what we do is we get triggered and we react. But what would happen if we get triggered and we take a step back and take a sip of water and go, do I really want to be putting that hate out into the world? So there are little things. I carry notes in my pockets, express, don't send. I have notes all over my car, express, don't send. Because the thing is that we're in a bad habit. It's just habit to get triggered and to send. So we have to break the habits with reminders. I have nature photos in my office, and so that always reminds me, what energies do I want to send to my favorite nature beings? Words on the refrigerator that I would like to incorporate into my vocabulary, not because I think they're beautiful words, but they're actually magic. It's how we change the collective, by saying these words out loud every day. Because in most traditions, we use words as cures. Actual saying a word out loud is a cure.
We learned to spell. We learned to spell at school, right? We just are thinking that they're actually spells.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's so powerful. So I know you have a gift to share, some drumming, would you like to take
Yeah.
into a journey. I mean, I just love that you want to share this, and I'm hoping. I guess the listeners probably should not be driving the car right now, right?
Yeah, if you're driving the car, do this later.
Yeah.
So
Good pause, come back to it.
yeah.
And do you have any instructions for people who are listening? Should they put a cloth over their eyes, lay down, be in a sacred space?
Yeah, I will guide everybody through this. So let me just give you the quick and easy on this.
Okay.
I besides my healing work, I'm known for soul retrieval and doing healing work on people. But one of my greatest desires is to help to reverse environmental pollution. I've been interested in this since the 70s. I have my BA in marine biology, and so I've been working towards how do we reverse environmental pollution. First, I thought I was going to go for school, and then my spirit said, no, we'll teach you through spiritual methods. So to make a very long story short, I used to bring groups to Egypt. And after one of my trips to Egypt, one of the Egyptian gods, Anubis, came to me in a dream. And Anubis said to me, the missing piece of your environmental work is transfiguration. And I didn't know what transfiguration was. I went to Webster's the next day and it said shape-shifting. And I said, well, what does shape-shifting have to do with healing the environment? So it turns out my next door neighbor, who was a born-again Christian and believed I was the witch who lived next door, came down, developed liver cancer. And so she asked me if I was willing to work with her. And we had a beautiful healing. 2 women who for years were torn apart by division. We created a love affair together. I mean, we just fell in love with each other when we just wanted to talk. And so I told Catherine about my dream, and being a born-again Christian, she jumped up and shared all the stories about Jesus healing anybody who touched the hem of his garment. He emanated so much divine spiritual light that anybody in his presence was healed. So I started to do research, and I have not found a spiritual tradition that does not write about transfiguration and working with light. And I could go on for hours about this, but it's in my book, Walking in Light, and Medicine for the Earth was my first book that I wrote about this. And so in working with light, the beautiful part for me is we don't have to get caught up in issues around permission of doing healing work for the earth or for other people, because the basis of the work is that our perception creates our reality. So if somebody's let's say, I have this all the time, a student says to me, I have cancer, and I don't want to tell anybody but you, because everybody's going to pity me, and I don't want to be pitied.
Right.
And you know how to feed my strength and not my illness, because we always have an opportunity. If a person has the COVID, if the person suffered a terrorist activity, if a person is sick in any kind of way, we can see that person in their illness and say, oh, you poor thing. Or we could see that person in their true spiritual light, because who we are beyond these beautiful bodies, these robes that we took on, these costumes that we took on for this lifetime, and our minds who keep us moving forward, who we really are is our authentic identity is spiritual light. We are a reflection of the goddess, the God, the creative forces of the universe. We are just light. And so
just because you don't know, but I have a whole series of children's books called Sparkle, and it's about a girl that will not let her inner light go out. So this is the Sparkle series. But I wanted to share something with you. Last night I asked for a dream about what to do with you with this show, because I knew it was going to. I was really touched that you said you'd do this with me. So I asked for a dream. And you know what came through? It made no sense until you just started speaking. What happened was I saw myself on the cross. And I told my husband this morning, like, I'm not sure what was happening here, but I was Jesus on the cross last night. And I was raised Christian, but I sort of left that world. So, and we actually worked with it for a little while. I was trying to do some work where I kind of pulled it out of my body and looked at it. I was like, what does this represent? Is there a death going on? Is there a resurrection going on? Is it like the next level of ego death? What is the cross? What do you feel this cross represents?
Well, in the alchemical books that I read about transfiguration, they talk about that the crucifixion was really about stripping away the ego, because as long as you're filled with ego, you can't really be the full light that you are in the world. You can't have your spirit carry you through the absolute worst dark night of the soul imaginable unless your ego is stripped. So in alchemy, which talks about transmuting darkness into light, they say that the self-possessed man must die in order for the great work to be done. So I think that you were tapping into the alchemical definition of transfiguration, which is the ego must die, the self-possessed woman or man must step away in order for this amazing light to do its work.
That's interesting, because what John Patrick, my husband's a yogi, so what we talked about was the ego death. And then I said, I feel this conflict in myself between wanting to go inside and be in a cocoon during this sort of dark period, just go sit with an oak tree and that's it, and then, but also to really be of service, which is really what this show has been, and the different beautiful people who have come and joined me on this show. So there's this, and maybe there's not a conflict, maybe there's, as you said, as the darkness, as the ego falls away like autumn leaves, or maybe that could be gentle, a gentle approach, to allow more of this. I have a yogi friend that Mark Whitwell, who will say, you are the power of the cosmos. The power of the cosmos is moving through you with your in-breath and your out-breath. So I really love this idea. So maybe cultural, maybe we're just in for a big awakening here,
Yeah, we are. And for me, it's not an either or. It's I came here to be an ego and experience life on earth. But then we also have to understand there are different dimensions of life, and we can move into our highest spiritual self, and we can radiate light in the world. And it's really easy. I can actually teach this practice in just a couple of minutes. That's how easy.
I have one other question, and we'll move into the practice. But I was with some Tibetan monks a few days ago, and we were chanting to Tara. We were chanting to Tara, and she was sitting there. They had a statue, and she had roses in her hand, and she was so beautiful. She had roses on her feet. She's sitting there, and I was really staring at her, so I'm chanting. And I suddenly just burst into tears. I just was like, and I'm actually not a very tearful sort of person, but I was also all of a sudden overwhelmed by the realization that it was very hard for me to stay identified or attuned with life. It's like very easy to slip back into the culture of death. And I really had this question about how we stay attuned to it's not just the goddess, but life itself, and how our culture has kind of pulled us away from that. So,
well, nature has its cycles, birth and death. And so we're always going to be experiencing, it's time for me to go into my cave. And, people are different. For some people, it's winter. For some people, it's summer. For some people, it's spring. Some people, it's fall. And it's like we need to do that inner work to go within, and we need to let go of the outer world, because the outer world is just illusion. And so we end up getting so distracted, we forget about our truth, we forget about our healing abilities for ourselves and our healing abilities for the world. So the inner work is I feel the most important work we could be doing right now.
I agree. I completely agree. And so I'd love to engage in this practice with you.
Yeah. So I explained the background, so we don't have to do that.
Okay.
And it's really about understanding that you're more than a body, and that you're more than your mind, that you actually have this light. And again, your perception changes your reality. So if you look at whatever country you live in or whatever state that you live in, and you go, oh my God, everything is terrible, everybody is dealing with such horror, I feel so bad, that's the energy. You're actually burdening everybody, because that energy of pity is heavy. It's really heavy. You can't find your strength. Think of thousands of people saying, you poor thing. How do you find your inner strength in that conversation? So what we can do is, when we see these unbelievable disasters, and when we think about planet Earth, and when we think about our favorite places, is to go inside and experience our internal light, and actually see it in its beauty, see it in its strength, see it in its pure light. That light is pulsating through that place, is pulsating through that person. And I can tell you hundreds of case studies of healings of people and healings of environmental events just by using this one practice. And so I've tried over the years, I've had to teach it at so many conferences, I've had to find the right languaging for people. And what I like to use is, one of my teachers was a Basque woman, Angelise Arian. And in the Basque tradition, they actually believe that we're all walking stars on this great big planet Earth. And so I love to use the star mentality, because when you think about stars, you don't think, oh my God, they're efforting so much to put out this light. Are they tired? They don't compete with each other. As we look up at the night sky and we're amazed by the beauty of every star shining. We don't say, oh, I wish that star wouldn't shine so brightly. And they don't send the light anywhere. They just radiate, and the light floods the earth. So that's the point, where this is a feminine, this practice I'm teaching you is what my spirits, and the spirit I work with the most is the Egyptian goddess Isis. And Isis told me, she asked me for the work for me to bring into the world is the feminine principle that it's not what we do that changes the world, it's who we are that changes the world. So as we become a being of light, we don't have to send light. We just have to be that light at the grocery store, as we're driving, at line on the bank. That's the real spiritual practice of the feminine power of the goddess. And so I'd like to just ask you to close your eyes right now. And there's been a lot of talking, and we want to move our mind out of the way. And so place your hand on your heart. Take some really deep breaths. Breathe down all the way to your belly. And feel your breath as this beautiful feminine energy dancing inside your body, bringing life and energy to all your organs. Breath is not stagnant. Breath always is moving. And as you breathe, start to focus on loved ones and places where on earth that you just love and want to support in a feminine way. And so imagine yourself traveling inside your body to your inner landscape. In shamanism, it's understood that everything within you is also without. So this is your inner garden. This is your inner landscape. And focus on a star within you that's growing. The light is really growing. And allow every cell of your body to absorb that light. Take it into every cell so that it's healing you. The one thing we know about light is that light heals. And now, as you absorb that light, let it start to flow, radiate. Don't send it, just radiate that light. Imagining it going within and through the earth. Imagine that light flooding the collective, flooding you, flooding your loved ones, helping to wake us up. Light wakes us up. And when you feel ready, don't disconnect from this light completely, because this light is you. But start to come back to your ordinary conscious, because it is time for you to start your day. And in doing this practice, if you're driving or standing on line somewhere, what all you have to do is focus on your inner starlight, touching the life of every being you come into contact with. Because that's part of the magic of shamanism, is when you step into the presence of a true shaman, you naturally heal because of the light they emanate. We all have this ability to emanate this light like a star and contribute to the healing of our great Mother Earth. So it's time to come back and to experience your body and to wiggle your toes and your fingers and open up your eyes and just be back. And think about being in nature, sitting by a beautiful tree, growing deep roots into the earth so that you feel grounded. As you hear these fairy bells welcoming you back into your body, into sacred space. Shine your light, and you will be a sacred presence walking on this great earth, bringing love and beauty to everything that comes into your presence. So blessings, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. That was so beautiful. My goodness, I can just had a flash. Like if we just started the morning with our children that way, helping them find the dancing light within them and their own connection to the great intelligence of life.
Yeah, they love to dance as a star. I tell kids to dance as a star, and they get it.
They totally get it. They totally get it. When I read the Sparkle books to them, they're like, I always ask them what their favorite color is, and they're like, I'm yellow, or I'm red, or I'm, it's so great. And to maybe as our culture that we're living into, this new whatever's going to arise next, maybe we'll be able to get off the cross and align with life.
Yeah. I've had visions of the earth where she's come to me, and it's really a beautiful practice to lie on the earth and connect with her heartbeat. She's 4.6 billion years old. Imagine lying on the earth and imagining yourself connecting your heartbeat with the heartbeat of a being that's 4.6 billion years old. If you don't think that's going to bring you healing in your life more than anything else, trust me, it will. And what the earth has told me is that she's evolving to more of a transparent state, more of a spiritual state. And so this is the time to evolve along with her and start to bridge in some of the beautiful, transparent energies from the unseen worlds into some of the denseness of the world that we're living in right now. That would be a great gift for all of life.
That would be really beautiful. One of the men I've had on the show is named Rory Duff, and he's a dowser. We've done a few episodes. And he's been talking about the dragon lines, the energy lines that are opening up all around the earth, and how they are actually, if we go stand on them, they're really encouraging all of us to awaken to these unseen forces, these unseen energies, and that it's actually quite a good idea to attune so that we're not knocked off center by the energies as they're awakening. And so So if people want to study with you, or they want to spend more time in your presence? I know I do. What do we do next?
Well, I have a website, sandraingerman.com, and I've been writing a monthly column called the Transmutation News since 2000, and I haven't missed a month. And I'm actually going to start probably next year, maybe before, adding a video journey or ceremony to each monthly column. And so you can sign up for my mailing list to learn more. As the time of this recording, we're still in the COVID, so there's lots of online trainings that I'm doing, and that you can buy after the training is over. They're still available to watch. And then when I can start teaching physical workshops, I'll announce that. I mostly train teachers now, and so I have about 200 teachers and practitioners who I have confidence in and have listed on my other website called shamanicteachers.com. Shamanicteachers.com. We have teachers all over the world, and a lot of them are doing successful online trainings right now for learning healing. We've made the trainings really small, maybe 4 people, so we know what everybody's doing, so no clients can get hurt afterwards, which is what my personal ethics is about, is giving people the best training so clients get the best help. And then every Sunday, I do a free podcast with Renee Baribeau called The Shaman's Cave. And you can subscribe to that on Shaman's TV, and we get a little wild, and I break all the rules because I have to be so proper on so many of the programs that I do. So this is the time for me to just let loose. So those are options, and I hope to see you out there one way or another. And you do such amazing work. Thank you, and you're such a beautiful presence. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It was just lovely. I'm still feeling the dancing light inside. Just really, really lovely. So it feels like a real blessing. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, my goodness. And thank you to all the listeners who have stayed with us all the way through here. May your lives be blessed, and see you next week. Much love. Many blessings.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.